Go ahead.
All right. Well, here we are back together again. This is our third time together talking about nutrition. And so my part of it, I'm really excited. This is the time when we get to help people sort out, with all of the nutrition information that we always hear, what is true and what isn't. And so I'm going to step us back just a moment, and I'm going to go over some of the concepts that we've already talked about insofar as nutrition. And then we're going to step into how to apply it, how to look at facts versus fiction, and we'll go from there. Are you ready? All right, Josh, let's move our slide. Perfect. So this first one tells you this is what we're going to go over today. We're going to review your understanding, since you've been here with me before, of nutrition concepts and the various issues. The goal for me for this presentation is to help you increase your understanding of facts versus fiction, particularly as they relate to nutrition. Because the one thing that's true is whatever you heard about nutrition yesterday is going to change tomorrow. So it's really crazy. And there are certain tools that I'll provide you where you're going to be able to analyze, should I fall for this or should I not? And so we're going to look at how to apply this information to everyday life, at home and at work. And when we first started with the COVID and we first started this program doing the Zooming, we were all spending a lot of time at home, and we thought, how are we going to fill our days, right? And so what you've probably learned, as I have, is that now at the end of the day, it's like, wow, I don't have enough time to finish all of the things that I had planned to do. Now, many are going back to work, and so you're balancing the work home, and it's really more critically important that you learn how to assess, insofar as nutrition, what's the good stuff, what's the not. And so the other thing is that we hope to increase an understanding of how each of us can help teach others how to understand the difference between facts and fiction. And one of the things that is really important as you learn how to differentiate nutrition, truth from non-truth, is how to engage people in conversation. And so sometimes you're going to look at things and people are going to tell you things. When people learn I'm a dietitian, they'll come up like this and they'll lean forward and they'll tell me things that they know about nutrition. And I have learned after all of these years how not to react too quickly. And so to engage them in conversation. The final part of the presentation this evening is that I really want to learn what you want to learn next. So we had the specific topics that we were doing for talks 1, 2, and 3. And then I sort of left talk 4, the topic, open, because that's where I'm hoping you will guide me. And I think, Josh, I'm ready for the next one. Please. Perfect. All right, so back to the beginning. When we're talking about nutrition, things to remember that we've already talked about is that you need to plan. And now that we're so far into the COVID and our fixed environments, you understand how much more important this is than what you even thought about before. So things like having a grocery shopping list, so that even if you're at work, you're not racing out to a convenience store. You've got everything that you need in your home. The other is you want to keep all of the, what we call nutrient-dense foods, visible. So whether you are sitting at home or at work, you do know that if you sit at work with a bowl of M&Ms on your workspace, you know that you keep grabbing for that. On the other hand, if you have things like fruit, easy fruits or nuts or anything like that, those are the things that you see when you see them you'll grab for those as well. The next thing is that you want to do batch cooking. So that means, again, when you're planning ahead, plan to have foods for the whole week that you can just throw in a lunch bag, that you can throw wherever you need so that you can transport it from one place to the other. Okay, Josh, we're ready for the next one, please. We had talked about doing it with a buddy. So whenever you're working on healthier lifestyles, it's always easy, usually, not always, it's usually easier to have somebody who you can talk about things with, who you can say, yeah, this was really challenging, this is good, this was easy, hey, did you try this or did you try that? So with practicing a meatless day, as I said before, it doesn't have to be a Monday, but one day a week, see if you can go without, and I'm going to use the phrase, animal flesh. So looking around and you say, okay, well, I don't need the pork chop, or I don't want the sausage, or I don't even want the chicken breast. Have one day where you're really focusing on plant-based. But I want to say something interesting about this. I have friends who have tried to practice a more vegetarian type of a diet, and they might choose chips and candy and all kinds of things that are not animal flesh, but the calories start adding up and they can't understand, if I'm mostly plant-based, how is it that I am gaining weight? So we want to go back and look, and then the final step is to look at plants and concentrate on plants. Again, not everybody, I'm not espousing vegetarianism. I'm just saying that the majority of the food choices should probably come from plant-based, and that makes it nutrition-based. So Josh, if you'll slide me to the next, please. All right, so we look again, and what I had talked about before, whether I am talking about nuts, or I am talking about fruit, or I'm talking about vegetable, you look at these and all of those wonderful foods, let's see, have nutrients within them. You don't think about the nutrients. You look at the food, you look at the orange, you look at the nuts, and you just see the food. But your body starts to know that there's nutrition in there and they want it. And so as soon as you start to chew, your body sets in motion all of these things that are going to help digest the food. So you've got action, you've got organs that are interacting, and the whole purpose of this magical body is to balance you between health and disease, and hopefully guaranteeing us that we are on the side of more health. All right, so Josh, let's scoot ahead. And again, we talked about what's the right nutrition for you. So I might choose foods, or anybody in your family might choose foods that they prefer, and timing for when they're going to eat. And it could be completely different from what's right for you. But you just have to remember, and even when we're talking about fact versus fiction, what makes the most sense to you, and how are we going to help others evaluate things like this? Okay, and that takes us back to, Josh, forward us, please. Balance, next one, variety, moderation, and exercise. And so again, you can look at all the fad diets. You can try and assess what's good nutrition, what is bad for you, what diet should I read, dietary approach should I read and practice right now. And I promise you, this is the best thing that absolutely never changes. As long as you're getting balance with all the food groups, and within each food group you are getting a variety, then moderation, again, is something that I want to stress right now. Whether I'm saying moderation, it's okay, don't feel guilty about having a cookie. Moderation would also mean that if you're eating just gobs and gobs of broccoli, those calories are going to add up. You're not practicing moderation for any of that. And the last thing is that you want to balance it with exercise. Okay, so Josh, we are ready. Oopsie. Sorry about that. All right, so here we go to what I think is the most important, and this is nutrition fads and facts versus fiction. And this is, again, what's so important. And the other thing I said, nutrition facts, that's science. And as science, the rule is that we are constantly challenging ourselves to do experiments in any food fact that we know and see if the newest science can disprove what we were believing. Remember when we were all told that a high carbohydrate diet was good, then it was bad. Protein is good, then it's bad. Trans fats are good, trans fats are bad. So we have to constantly be vigilant and learning about how it is that we can help ourselves learn about what's actual fad, what's fact, and what is fiction. So Josh, let's move us and go to the first example. And so with this, I'm going to give you just this classic example of how you know nutrition facts. So that's why I call this Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And Josh, let's go to the Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. All right, everybody who is on this call absolutely positively knows that our bodies need water. We absolutely positively know that we need a balance between food and water. And our body, if we don't do that, again, what I've said before is our body is this miracle machine. We can abuse it insofar as nutrition and poor nutrition. We can abuse it for quite a while, and then our bodies will run, and then all of a sudden you hit the wall and our bodies say, hey, wait, I can't do this anymore. So with this, it's important to know that yes, we need water. Yes, we need food. Now, because you know that, Josh, I'm going to ask you to push the button one more time. Knowing what you know, what statement, and there will be 4, is the most true about water, the most scientific, the most factual. First one, and think about it. You have to drink 8 glasses of water every day. Is that science? The second one, water is in every food except fats and oils. The third one, Josh, according to the latest research, there are 8 best times per day to drink water. And then the fourth one, drinking urine is a safe way to hydrate. All right, so you can look at these, and these have been floated around because we do know that urine will provide our bodies with water. That does not mean that it's scientific that you should drink it if you're out there and you're thirsty. Got it? So if you're in a desert, I'd still say, let's not drink the urine. So raise your hand if you think number 1 is the most factual. Raise your hand if you think of number 2 as most factual. If you think that number 3 is most factual. And if you think that 4 is most factual. Okay, Josh, give us the answer, please. You can push that. Yeah, there you go. So most of you knew this. Yes, in fact, water is in every single food except fats and oils. And for some foods, they, as I had said before, they're up to 85, 95% water. So having a moderation and a balance and a variety of foods, you're going to get the water that you need. It's not that difficult. And so as long as you keep that balance. There was misinformation about needing to drink 8 glasses of water every day, and we dispelled that myth before. There was some falsehoods going around about you have to drink water right before you eat a meal because that's going to decrease your appetite, so you'll eat less. There are others that say you have to drink all the water right before bedtime. So really, that's not going to be the important thing. And our bodies, again, being the miracles of miracles, when we drop 1 to 2% in balance of water to imbalance, we get the sensation of thirst. So if we stop and we are sensitive and listen to our bodies, then we are going to detect when we're getting thirsty. For our athletes, as I said, they can pass to the level of dehydration a little bit quickly, or a lot quickly. So we have to keep them hydrated in a more specific time set. All right, so let's go ahead to the next one, Josh. Why are so many of us fooled about nutrition facts? And click on the first one. There is a lack of knowledge. People they think they know about nutrition, but they don't. And so if somebody challenged you, where'd you get that fact? Where'd you get that fact? You think, well, I just know it. I just know it. And in general, because nutrition is so complex and because there is so much misinformation out there, we tend to have a lack of knowledge, and that lack of knowledge drives us to believe almost anything. Okay, so Josh, you want to go to the next one? So this one's a biggie. It is the lack of convenience. And again, think of you going to campus. When you're on campus, if you've forgotten to bring a packed lunch and you are all of a sudden hungry, you're going to race out to get something at the food courts if they're open anymore. People who live in off the beaten track areas where there aren't grocery stores are going to go to the convenience stores. I think I told you that we lived on the Navajo reservation for many years, and being isolated on the reservation, they had just convenience stores. So where you would have a population where you would think that with the indigenous people, they would only have foods that were natural, native to them, they would go to the convenience store. It's just because it's there. All right, Josh, again, different priorities. So if a priority is to put food in a child's tummy and you have less expensive convenience foods, you may just opt for the less nutritious things. And again, Josh, want to push again? All right, with all that information out there, it is just too confusing. So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I just don't know. I'm just going to do that if you give it any thought at all. And Josh, next push, we want to make it quick and easy. So people want to make eating quick and easy. Our job, all of us, is to make decisions quick and easy so we can help. And that's how we're again going to work on helping people distinguish between fact and fiction, particularly as it relates to food. All right, so Josh, let's move us to the next, please. Here we come to health claims, and this is really what drives me crazy. How many of you knew that on a package label, they can pretty much claim whatever they want to claim? Well, that it's a little bit more controlled now, but if it says low in sugar, all of those sorts of claims, it may, or helps cure muscular dystrophy, it's really hard to regulate those. So the Food and Drug Administration has stepped in, and they have said that we are going to make declarations of what you can call organic, what you can call gluten-free, what you can call all of these things, but it's not true of all packages. It's not true of all packaged foods. So two federal agencies I want to introduce you to. One is the Food and Drug Administration. That oversees packaged foods. And again, they have limitations. The U.S. Department of Agriculture oversees overseas meats, chicken, fish, those sorts of things. So FDA, packaged foods, USDA, it's the animal flesh types of products, okay? So Josh, we're ready to go. Next slide, please. All right, food for thought. In today's society, what do you think, and I'm going to ask each of you, is the biggest influencer on health claims? What do you think gives us the information? And you can unmute you. Jasmine, what do you think?
I was just having a meeting earlier with the team, and I was saying how I like to do everything by the book. So I'm going to listen to whatever you say, and I'm going to apply that. But if I wasn't part of here, I think social media would be my go-to.
Oh, you, A plus, A plus. So let me take you to the next slide, please. And it is social media, social media. And everybody gets their information from social media. So it's like, how do you stop that? Did anybody watch that documentary on social media that the ex-CEO of Google, of Pinterest, of Facebook, they all put it on? Did anybody see that? It's like a 2-hour.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Are you talking about The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Did you watch it?
Not yet. I'm planning on watching it this weekend. I've heard good things about it.
Okay, I'm going to tell you that it is one of the most impactful things I have ever seen, and it will scare the heck out of you because all of us intellectual people think that we really are in control. We know what we are thinking, but here's a perfect example of social media and how they manipulate our brains. So let's just, for example, say that each one of us is on Google. Okay, we all do Google as our search engine. And each one of us types into Google the benefits of nuts and seeds. Okay, so we all type that exact same wording in. What happens is that because of social media and artificial intelligence, they've been watching us. This is from that documentary, Jenny. So they've been watching us, and they will put in the Google spot that most matches with what you've searched for before. And even though it's exactly the same that you, Jenny, Dr. Loy, Josh, Sahar, everybody has put in the exact same thing, we're all going to get different answers because they're reading what it is that will drive us, that will pay for the advertisers. So we can think that we control our brains, we think that we're intelligent, but oh my goodness, after you watch it, Jenny, I got to talk to you. I want you to, we'll go back and forth on social media, and you'll let me know what you think. Jasmine, have you seen it?
No, but I'll be doing that this weekend for sure.
Okay. Josh, have you seen it?
I have not, but now you've piqued my interest.
Okay, you have to see it. And every one of these head people say that they will never let their kids use any kind of device at all. And one of the guys, I think it was the Pinterest former CEO, said he doesn't use his device anymore. So it is very sobering. But when we think about the nutrition information and social media works our brains to pieces. So are there any questions that people have so far? Because I don't want to skip any of this. All right, Josh, let's take us to the next one. All right, so here we go, which is really interesting. And now we're going to look at how do we tell fact versus fiction? And I'll use these examples. What have you heard about gluten-free? Anybody? Anybody? Anybody?
The truth about it, or what we've heard that was incorrect?
What Yeah, what you've heard, Josh. Anything.
Well, I know that some people think that if you go gluten-free, it's a healthier alternative, that it's some type of miracle diet that will benefit you X, Y, Z reason, but that's not the case.
Absolutely.
It's not a miracle diet.
It became one of those fad diets. What about, and that earns you an A+ in this one. Okay, so I will explain this to you, but gluten is actually a protein within grain. And there are certain people, maybe 5% if that, of the population who was born with a condition called celiac disease. Have you heard of that? Celiac people diagnosed with celiac disease cannot digest the gluten. They can't digest that protein. So if you think gluten is a protein that's in all carbohydrates, so it's in breads, it's all wheat-based carbohydrates, wheat, oat, bran, and I'll go over that a little bit more. But so any product that has gluten in it, these people have such a severe reaction that if a person has celiac disease, they could actually die if they eat that. And the body builds up a tolerance, so you can be exposed to gluten once, you can have a reaction, and the reactions get more and more severe. But when I tell you it's hardly anybody in our society who has that, that's the truth. And yet what happens is people who had celiac disease who go on a restrictive diet don't have as many choices of calories. So they do lose weight. What's our society want? To lose weight. So they figure if all of the advertising on packages say gluten-free, whether or not it's true, they will buy those packages and they will spread the word through social media, through social friendships, and those sorts of things. So it has a function, but very small portion of our population needs it. And yet the advertisers found out that this was just an absolutely incredible way to sell product. The thing with carbohydrates, well, carbohydrates we've already talked about. And Sahar did a great job in teaching us about carbs, but carbohydrates have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, and our body makes glucose, and the glucose is what our body is going to use to fuel our heart, our brains, and our red blood cells. But for some reason, all of a sudden, people said, carbs are bad for us, can't have them, stay away. Think of what your go-to kinds of foods are. You're going to grab crackers, you're going to, well, for us in this group, we're probably going to grab a potato, we're going to grab whole wheat bread, we're going to do those sorts of things that we look at and we think, oh, those are carbohydrates. If people believe those are things that we shouldn't eat, by eliminating a whole category of foods, again, they're eliminating a lot of calories, but those are calories that our body needs. We are going to talk about high protein diets as well. And think about this. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I will tell you that back in the 70s, the high protein diet, starting with Atkins, started to become the rage. And so, again, it had no basis in scientific evidence, but this guy Atkins decided that he would teach his whole group of followers that if they only ate protein, they would lose weight. And so again, think about it. If you're only eating animal flesh types of product or fat, and you're cutting out a lot of other things, you're not going to be, probably not at first anyway, you're going to feel fuller longer, but you're not getting the balance of nutrition. Okay, so then we're going to talk about juicing. And I wanted to show you that if I take an orange, that's about 60, 69 calories. but to make a glass of orange juice that's going to satisfy us and give us the nutrients in it, but the mouth satiety, it's going to take 4 of these. So instead of 70 calories roughly, it's 240 calories that we're drinking. So everybody, the juicing became the rage, and people were doing a lot of juicing. And then comes the vitamin rage, and we're going to talk about supplements too. So I want to save that because I want you to be really clear on what vitamin and mineral supplements are and the non-truths that are involved in all of those. So Josh, just click one more time, please. And you remember how I taught you the word diet? How do you spell it?
Die.
You got it, Jenny. Yeah, it's die. The first 3 letters are die. So if you follow any of those diets, ultimately you're getting no nutrients. Those diets are built-in failure. And so you want to look instead at dieta. How do you live, right? What's a good manner of living? And now I'm going to take you to my favorite slide. And then what I think I'd like to do with this is probably make a copy of this and send it to Dr. Loy, and maybe Dr. Loy can give it to everybody. Because I put this together because these are the most common fad diets. And let me see, I want to try something. Okay, so there's the raw food diet, and these are fad diets that I've accumulated a little bit of information throughout the last couple of years. But right up above here where you see A&D, it doesn't really mean and. It's the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So that's my professional organization. And in a minute, I'll ask Josh to click on that, but not right now. All right, so we have the raw food diet that's been a common one. It's been popular, and then it's decreased in popularity. And it says that you're supposed to eat totally non-processed, only organic foods. And we've already talked about how unprocessed and organic foods, basically, they're the most expensive. And again, basically, they're not necessarily more nutritious or nutrient dense than foods that you can buy at a more reasonable cost range. The RD says, that's me, the registered dietitian, says that there are dangers when you eat some raw foods. So have you ever seen raw milk? Yes? Raise your hand if you've seen packaged raw milk. Right, well, they do sell it at some Whole Foods types of stores, organic stores. Raw milk means that it's not gone through processing. It's not been where they kill the bacteria. So we have documented cases of people who drink raw milk, who get bacteria, who get violently sick. And the other thing, of course, eating raw eggs. You've got so much bacteria within the raw eggs that's really a big no-no. Some beans, again, you want to stay away from raw unless you're talking about fruits and vegetables, and then you want to be sure to cook them well. The high protein I mentioned before, the one that hit us first in popularity was the Atkins diet. That changed names, and then because people started being aware, now this isn't really working because I'm starting to eat normally again, it was then called the Zone Diet. And the guy came out with a book about the Zone Diet. If you compared to the previous one to the Atkins, it's the same thing. And then people started finding out about the Zone Diet really isn't a good thing, and so they named it something else. But in the meantime, they've got all of these products that the people who started these fads, they made oodles of money. They started workshops, they started all kinds of things. So the next type of fad diet is eat right for your type. And you can have people refer to you as a type A personality, right? And this one says, well, if this is your personality type, These are the foods that you can eat and be safe. Or interestingly, just yesterday, I had somebody say, well, my blood type is this. So I understand that I can eat this, but I can't eat this, right? And it's like, how do you say this nicely? You know, I've already taught you guys, you say, that's really interesting. Tell me a little bit more. But eating right for your blood type or your personality type is absolutely, positively not true. So when I say not true, and we go back to the 4 words, balance, variety, moderation, exercise, that's what you need to follow and figure out what foods are foods within those groups that are right for you. The paleo diet, oh, this is another one. This is exactly a new name, or not so new anymore, for the high protein diet. And the concept is that in Paleolithic days, people would hunt and gather, and they would go out and they would kill animals and they would eat it, and they were fit. Except what they forgot is, and people bought into this, thought this is great, great, great. People bought into this, and the paleo became the most popular thing, but people didn't realize we have all of these other convenience foods, so we don't need to, and we don't exercise, by the way. Okay, so another type of a diet is eat more and weigh less. And again, this was a fad diet that came to be and said eat very low, vegetarian, and said that it's easy. Well, anybody who has tried to be a strict vegetarian and it's not something that they embrace wholeheartedly, it's not so easy. So you try to be really restrictive, and then after a short while, you just can't do it anymore. You've got food that's calling to you. Remember the attractive nuisance. So I talked about gluten-free. And if we look up here again, on a gluten-free diet, think of the acronym WARB, wheat, oats, rye, and barley. So somebody like a person with celiac disease has to avoid wheats, oat, rye, and barley, because gluten is that protein that's in there that will hurt them digestively and can compromise their health. So wheat, oat, rye, and barley, that's the gluten-free, as Josh has explained to us, but it's only for people who have to follow that diet. Got it? So only for people with celiac. And by the way, a person who is born with celiac disease doesn't get rid of it. You can't acclimate to it. It doesn't get better. It's yours for life. Okay, so they have to follow that. But the rest of us, absolutely not. The other thing that's an interesting thing, if you've gone gluten-free and you've eliminated the wheats, oats, rye, and barley, and then you decide you can't do it anymore, then you try and introduce those again, it really upsets your stomach because you're not used to that. And so you have to acclimate again. And so now we go down to the good carbs, bad carbs diet. And it talks about low glycemic index, and I'll explain that a little bit more. We talked about it before, but I'll explain it more. Then the new glucose revolution builds on the low glycemic index, meaning how quickly does it get into our body. Remember that story I told you where there was the kid who was about to pass out when I came outside of my office and I had a baked potato and I went and gave it to him, and he had almost completely passed out, but I made him eat my white baked potato. Only nerds bring white baked potatoes to lunch at school in their lunchbox. But so I fed that to him, and within seconds that glucose got into his system and he was able to get his brain and heart working. Not that they had completely stopped. I'm not a miracle person, but you can see the glycemic index, high glycemic index, it helped him. So people who want to follow the low carb, they are choosing foods with low glycemic index. And sugar busters is similar to this. I'm sure everybody here has heard of a cleansing diet where you want to completely eliminate certain foods, or some people go on the intermittent starvation diets where they completely want to have their body only have liquids so that they can wash out the toxins. Okay, but bottom line for that is that's not scientifically based either. So there are two types of dietary intakes that I'm going to give you that really do work. And the first, probably most important, is the DASH, dietary approach to stopping hypertension. That's what DASH means. And that is mainly fruits and vegetables, but it's all based on moderation. The Mediterranean diet follows that recommendation, follows DASH, dietary approach to stopping hypertension. It's what you and I would call nutrient dense. It's what you and I would call healthy. And I do not ever tout programs like all of these that are going on throughout the years. But Weight Watchers, I can't believe I'm saying this, I don't work for them. Weight Watchers, especially the new one where you don't have to buy their food products, they teach you how to use that balance. And one of the positives, and I don't know how they're working it with the pandemic, it's probably by Zoom. One of the positives, if you remember how I had said that it helps to have a buddy to go through all of this healthiness with, Weight Watchers has your group support, and that's what's very important. So the bottom line, again, is balance, variety, moderation, and exercise. And so any questions on that? I see that we have some questions in the chat. Do we need to grab any of those questions, Josh?
No, none that are related.
Crucial. Okay, perfect. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. And here we go to gluten-free. So here again, if you look at who has judged this, it's the American Council on Science and Health. And that gives us the information that we need to know. So now packaged foods, in order for them to be labeled gluten-free, they have to follow protocol. They can't put this gluten-free sticker on it unless they have been approved by the federal agencies, okay? And they have to prove that none of their products have gluten in them. Got it? All right, so we can go to the next slide, please. And what they said, what the Academy, the American Council on Science and Health said, is basically the gluten-free diet is the sucker's diet. And there's no scientific basis for it to be followed unless, as I said, you are a person with celiac disease. Okay, so absolutely, there's no scientific basis for it. So if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I am following this gluten-free diet and it's really working, I'm losing weight. Everybody in unison, what are you going to say? That's
interesting.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
Exactly. That is exactly right. So that's the way we start the conversation. And then when they're leaning forward, when you say that's interesting, you can lean forward and say, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me about it. And you can tell whether or not they want to engage you. And you don't start spouting the facts at them. You invite them to find some information. You'd say, oh, I'd love to learn more about this. Could you find me any scientific articles that talk about it, please? And I'd love to learn. And that's how you get the conversation. And that's how you help people learn to distinguish fact versus fiction. Okay, so now let's go to the next slide. And you remember what a carbohydrate is. What do we say? It's carbon,
hydrogen,
And oxygen.
and oxygen.
oxygen. Perfect. That is it. A for everybody. All right, so Josh, click on one more, and you're going to see these are all carbohydrates. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, what people think of as carbohydrates is potatoes, starchy foods, so breads and grains. But a carbohydrate, as we've said a gazillion times, is also fruits and vegetables. So I did a really stupid thing one day when the low carbohydrate, there was somebody in the market in the produce area with me, and they said, oh, I can't eat carbohydrates. And I said, well, what are carbohydrates to you? And they said, I can never eat any carbohydrates. What are carbohydrates to you? Well, they are potatoes and rice and that sort of thing. And so I stupidly said, no, it's also fruits and vegetables. And then I realized, oh, they're going to cut out fruits and vegetables too, because if they're following a low carb diet. Now that I have educated them, I did them a disservice. So if you go down to how to separate facts from fiction, Josh, could you click on where that link is, that hyperlink? Because I want to show people where that goes. Perfect. All right. Fad Diets. The one spot that I want to always have you go to find really good information is eatright.org. Eatright.org is the website for professional nutrition dietetics information. And if you go check any of your food facts that you're given with eatright.org, you're going to have reliable nutrition information. So eatright.org, and it has a lot of links depending on what you want to find. So I had looked at Fad Diets on my Nutrition and Dietetics site, and it brought me here. And then it gives all kinds of reliable information. So, and I'll talk to you about it shortly when we're talking about how do you know reliable information. So if a website ends with .edu, that's from science. If it ends with .gov, that's usually science-based. And if it ends with .org, that's usually more reliable too. If it ends with .com, it's not necessarily untrue, but it's not scientifically proven. So you can get us out of that one, Josh, please. And we can go back to our slides. Thank you. And we'll go to the next slide. And we're going to high protein diets. So remember you told me carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. With a protein, the one element that's added onto that is the nitrogen element. So that's what distinguishes a carbohydrate from a protein. And those are building blocks of so many things within our body. We absolutely do need protein. Unequivocally, we need protein. What happens, interestingly, is our body, there are 9 essential amino acids, 9 essential amino acids. And that means essential means we have to get it from the diet. Our body doesn't make them. But we have 11 non-essential amino acids where our magical body can put together different pieces that we've digested and say, oh, I can do this, and then I can make a protein. Got it? So if you look again, you've seen this. We know that dairy, grains, vegetables, and meat and beans all have protein. And fruits, we already talked about, do not. And fat, of course, does not. But again, go ahead and click one more time. It's so easy for us in our society, especially in our society. We can go back one more, Josh, just down at the bottom, because I want to show you right down here. It says we all need about 0.8 of a gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. If we're a competitive athlete, you need twice as much as that. And so to make it easy for people, we'll usually say for the normal non-competitive athlete, we say you need 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So now, Josh, we can go to the next one. And this is a really easy chart too, and I'm happy to send this to you because you just keep it around and it'll tell you how many grams. However, having said that, let me rethink that and share this with you, because I can give you something like this, and then I don't want people counting how many grams of protein they have, because that makes them obsessive about it. If you're eating balanced, variety, moderation, and you're doing exercise, you're going to get the protein you need. Okay, so maybe it won't be so good to do that, but I want to show you something. And Josh, if we go to the next slide, or just click one, there you go. Protein only needs to be 10 to 15% of our total calorie intake. So let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to show you something that is mind-boggling to me. So a 7 to 10-year-old boy or girl, the recommended dietary allowance is 28 grams for a 7 to 10-year-old boy or girl. And their normal intake is more than twice that. Just anyway, and remember this age group, they're accelerating in their growth. So they need more protein than you and I do. So these little ones need more protein, but they're getting triple what they need. If we look down to a more common age grouping, still we look the 19 to 24-year-olds, you need 58 grams to do all the functions, to get your essential amino acids, to do all the jobs that protein needs to do, and we get almost twice as much for men. Women only need 46 grams. That's because generally we're smaller, and we're getting still more than we need. If we look at the 70-year-olds, notice that we hit a plateau. We're still recommending 63 grams. Generally speaking, you're getting more, but here it starts to taper off, because what you'll notice at the bottom is many times as we age, there are a lot of psychosocial things that I won't go deeply into because it's not my field. But if a person has been widowed, if a person is living alone, if a person is depressed because of the aging, they're not going to be intaking as many calories. And the same would be true if you look over at the female. They're getting almost as much as they need, but what happens as we age is our lean muscle mass starts to decline, and we need to get more protein in to help us rebuild that tissue. But we need, what's the primary nutrient? This is a quiz for everybody. Primary nutrient that we need to make sure that our muscles can still develop. What is it? What's our main?
Protein.
No.
Carbohydrate.
Yeah. It's going to be the carbohydrate, because that's going to drive everything and help us digest. And okay, let us quickly go to the next slide, please, Josh. And I don't want to run over time, but if we go to the next slide. Oh, I wanted to make a quick mention of protein powder. Protein powder is a supplement. You do not need it. The protein powder is not regulated. It's pure protein. We're already getting as much as we need or more than we need, so you don't need it. So high protein diet is low fiber, low vitamin, low phytochemicals, and those are the things that fight off oxygen degradation of the cells. So high protein increases your risk of heart disease. They're usually high in saturated fat because they're low in fiber. And I don't mean to be gross about this, but if something is low in fiber, you don't poop as much. You need that miber. And so there are research studies that show if the bacteria in the feces hangs around the colon longer, it might increase the risk for colon cancer. So you need to move things through, which means that you need more fiber. The other thing that's on this list is a calcium loss. Our bodies, our blood veins are in balance between calcium and phosphorus. And if we have too much protein, we have too much phosphorus, which decreases the amount of calcium in our blood, and that can increase risk for osteoporosis. So lots of reasons, lots of reasons. Okay, and I'm going to rush us through to the next slide. And I already talked to you about juicing, so I don't need to hang on this one. Everybody understands you want to eat the whole fruit because you're looking, if we go to the next slide or click it once, you can see how many more calories. All right, so this is the big thing. Supplements, 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 supplements. And if we go to looking at what's the difference between supplements or foods, people think that it's to supplement. They think that they're not eating healthy, so that they're going to take a supplement. And they're loaded with, they claim that they're loaded with vitamins A, C, D, and E, but so is fruit and vegetables. They claim that they're high in calcium, potassium, iron, zinc, and selenium and everything else, but you don't need to get that. And let's go to the next slide, because this is something that boggles my mind. All right, listen, look at these numbers. And I'm not going to embarrass anybody, so I won't ask you who takes a dietary supplement, but more than 2/3 of our population takes a vitamin or mineral supplement, and more than half of our population takes them daily. We spend $35 billion, that's with a B, $billion a year on supplements, and we don't need them. And if you've ever taken a dietary supplement, 10 minutes after you've taken it, go tinkle, go to the bathroom, urinate, and you'll see a bright red color, and you've urinated out all of the B vitamins. But here's what happened. Do you see where it says DSHEA of 1994? You see that on this slide? All right, in 1994, our Congress made a deal with the supplement industry. And the supplement industry said to these Congress people, I know you'll find this really hard to believe, we'll donate to your campaigns if you support this Dietary Supplement and Health Education Act. And what do you know? This act passed. This act gives all the supplement industry their right to regulate their supplements. So the USDA, the FDA, they don't regulate dietary supplements. All they can do is say this, what they said is in it, but all of these other claims, you're in charge of that. So you make your own decisions, and we, the Congress, won't interfere. So the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act of 1994, that's been around a long time, that's the reason that people buy and take vitamins. And there are certain reasons, like definitely believe in prenatal vitamins. Definitely believe that if you are going through chemotherapy, there are certain nutrients that don't get absorbed. If you have diverticulitis, there's certain nutrients that don't get in. Somebody may be anemic, and then they would take an iron supplement. But let's go to the next slide, please, Josh, and I'm going to show you what to look for. If you do find that you need a dietary supplement, this USP label says you a label, and you can look on the back of any food label, and including on a supplement. And what they say on a supplement doesn't necessarily mean that it's in there, that it's right and it's effective. But look on, for example, this evening, if you have a box of cereal or a box of rice or any packaged food item, turn it over, look at the food label, and you'll see the nutrition that is in that. Foods have to comply. They have to tell you what is there, but it doesn't mean the nutrients are safe and effective. So on a supplement, it's really not carefully regulated except by the USDA. So, all right, Josh, let's go to the next one. And look, and this is a question for you, which would be more reliable nutrition information? Would it be celebrities, TV, magazines? Is it social media, television? Well, that's TV again. What happens is all of this information gets presented. They have the celebrities, people get really excited talking about it, and they forget that we forget as a population to say, is this a credible source? We want to believe it anyway. All right, so let's get to the next slide. And this is probably one of the most important. And I already told you about eatright.org, that's mine. The Evidence Analysis Library is part of eatright.org, and that gives you all the scientific information. I'm going to send this page for you to have. I won't take the time to go over all of the links here to click on them, but the American College of Science and Health is this one that ends with .org. That's reliable. The quackwatch.org, that looks for what things are quackery. The National Council Against Health Fraud, you can look specifically at food. The dietary supplement information, that's the National Institute of Health, that's our government agency, and they have a limitation of the amount of information that they can give you. The Food and Drug Administration is a good site to go to. And one that I do want to take you to is this Snopes slide. So Josh, if you could click on that, please. Snopes is one that will tell you how to, wait, let's go down, there you go. You can type in anything and it will give you whether or not this is a fake claim. So it's about, you can find out about COVID, you can find about health claims, you can find out about anything. So it's snopes.com, and I think I'll get us out of this site. Thank you. And we want to, again, make changes, separate fact from fiction, and look for the things that are going to, next slide please, that are going to keep us making healthy choices and not increasing our risk of cardiovascular disease. So let's go on to the next one, and we're almost through. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Again, 3 things to remember: a conversation, a connection, that leads to change. So when we know information and we are able to have a conversation with people, to make a connection that resonates, then we can all work toward a healthier change. And one of my favorite quotes is from Margaret Mead: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So by us taking one step at a time, learning about fact versus fiction from food, about foods for us, we can help engage people. And keep your eyes open, continue to look for factual information, think about it, digest it, and then breathe it in and see if there are things that you question. And again, remember that nutritional science is always changing, so let's look for the latest information. Our CSUN website, our CSUN library has such a good database of all kinds of things. All right, Josh, into the next. Nutrition from the ground up. Know that if it's a nutrition related question, we're the nutrition experts, the registered dietitian. It's not a medical doctor. They have their areas of expertise, but nutrition isn't generally one of those. So next slide, we're getting there. Now do you understand nutrition facts versus fiction? Jonwin, do you? Jonwin?
This is very, very helpful.
Good. Okay. And can you think of a way that you can apply this to yourself and at home and to others? Would you be able to engage in conversation that you feel is comfortable?
I think so.
Okay, Gary, how about you?
Yeah, with all the screenshots that I've taken, I'll be able to share.
Okay. Good, good. And Josh, how about you?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. And so really what I would love for everybody to do is send Josh an email or me and ask me what it is you want to know next. What is it that we can talk about? And you can go to the next slide. And right now, does anybody have any questions for me about any of this? Because it's just a whole lot, and I'm sorry, but any questions from the group?
I have a question.
Yes.
So absolutely. All of us who have reached a certain age and are considered seniors, we do not need a daily vitamin supplement.
I would say that if you've had your blood panels done and it shows you your normalcy and you're not high or low, like you're not low in iron, then that would be correct. You want to make sure you're eating the right things. But here's one thing I will tell you. It's with supplements, it's easy to, if you're taking isolated supplements like vitamin A or vitamin D, especially fat solubles, it's easy to get to toxic levels. If you take a general multiple vitamin, the dietitian, would approve that as long as it's got the USP label on it, because there I know that you're not going to go overboard in any of those nutrients. Okay, so
why should I take it?
You don't need to, unless you've gone and had a blood panel that shows that you're low in certain nutrients. But then again, you know me, I would always say that you go to the food source of that. So if it shows that you're low in iron, well, are you eating enough spinach, and are you eating spinach with an orange, something that's a vitamin C source, so it's going to help with the uptake. If you're low in iron, are you eating some animal flesh, because those have the heme iron and that gets in better. So again, where we're talking, it would be an individualized thing. And you know what I would recommend, John, when if you do a blood panel and you send it to me, I can go back and forth with you privately on what things you can do to make the changes.
Well, I think the panels, it's those little micronutrients that that aren't on the panel that some people say.
Yeah, that's correct. And the main one, the micronutrients like the B vitamins, I will tell you that if you're eating any grain products, especially whole grain products, well, even white bread, it's all enriched with all of that. So there's really almost no case where you have a vitamin B of anything, a riboflavin deficiency. It would be so rare, especially if you're getting a pretty regular intake of your fruits and vegetables and grains.
Really don't. We're wasting all our money at.
You bet. And the phrase that I've used before is Americans have the most expensive urine in the world. Because if it's a water-soluble vitamin, honestly, within 10 minutes after taking the supplement, we urinate it out. So, and supplements can be really expensive. Watch how much money you save, right? I said $35 billion a year industry in the United States. That's what we spend.
So there's nothing in our bodies that change after, say, 65 years of age, or?
Well, yeah, we don't generally, we over 65, especially women, may find that we're not getting as much protein as we did. We may have our digestive intake isn't as strong, but if we're eating a balanced diet and we're eating some cereals that are enriched cereals, really there's almost no case for saying that I would recommend a dietary supplement. I am in my 70s. I do not take a dietary supplement. I do not. And you know this about me, I've been running 6 days or 7 days a week for the last 42 years.
Wow.
Okay. So, and again, I'm going to do this, knock on wood, but if you're healthy, save the money. I do eat really well most of the time. But again, one of the things I talked about, some people live to eat and others eat to live. So if the language that I speak is I make sure that I've had the servings in a day because I'm eating for my health. But some people just live, they start salivating when they think about food, right? And even if they're not hungry, we talked about appetite versus hunger. If they're not hungry, they still will eat that. Right. So that's kind of listening to your body. But for me to say that to a person who lives to eat, we're speaking a different language. I could say, hey, just eat less. And they say, well, Terri, you just don't get it. I like it. Right. So we have to look, and that's where we individualize nutrition. But I would guess that you're a pretty healthy eater.
More so with COVID. Ever since we've been staying at home,
mm-hmm.
We haven't had any meals to speak of from commercial establishments.
Right. So you save money and you eat healthier. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it just shows that we can, when we're forced into the situation, we can do that. But again, it's crazy that it took a pandemic to teach us that we need to really be healthy and eat healthfully. But we can, I say that because I've been eating healthy, but if I were to tell you, and don't tell this to my husband, that he is overweight, when I am his spouse, not his dietitian. So it's like, okay, not going to do it. I cook the meals because I like to cook. I serve because that's my lane. I like it. It's my art form. But if he wants more servings, and he too has gotten really in shape. When before COVID, he'd go out to fast food restaurants and eat and eat and eat and eat. So he got a Peloton, or I got him a Peloton for his birthday. And he's using it. But he's also eating healthy. So he's probably during this whole time lost over 20 pounds.
Wow.
And he's not mad at me for it. So yeah, any other questions?
That's my main thing, because I've been trying to decide if I should just stop that vitamin. I mean, I've heard that it's really not necessary. I probably should just stop it. Both of us should stop.
Yes, you can. What you might want to do is pick 3 days a week where you're going to not take it, and mark on your calendar these 3 days, unless you want to just completely stop it, and that's up to you.
Oh, I can just stop it.
Okay.
We put our tablets in those little Monday, Sunday through Saturday.
Yeah.
Just won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at all the money you'll save.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.